Over the last two videos, Ian has discussed a range of techniques that can be used to analyse and understand both still and moving images. In this video, we're going to consider how these techniques can be applied to a range of other recent media to contemplate how meaning is produced in different forms, including memes, photos on Instagram, and GIFs. What I primarily want you to keep in mind is that while it can seem as though still and moving images are very different, we can analyse them using similar techniques. Indeed, as we can see from Ian's last example, and this example from last week, forms like memes can very easily draw attention to some of the issues that surround the techniques and conventions that continue to be drawn upon in film and their problematic histories. Memes are interesting for a number of different reasons, not least the number of ways they can be considered and interpreted. You might remember the concept of polysemy from last week. It means many possible meanings. With a meme, an image can be attached to many ideas and feelings. Which brings us to another term from last week, anchorage. A meme often shares a similar base which has familiar connotations, but it is generally the caption that produces or anchors the way the image is read. Finally, we can think about the idea of intertextuality. Generally, the image in a meme comes from somewhere, but its use and reuse produces additional meanings. As one example, we could think of the condescending or creepy Wonka meme, a meme that developed out of an image featuring Gene Wilder from the 1971 version of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. We may or may not have watched the film, but the character of Willy Wonka has come to have connotations of sarcasm, with the facial expression a type of smirk, suggesting insincerity. Whether or not we see this in the 1971 movie, the ways the image has been used over and over again reproduce this particular meaning. We could also think about the meanings produced in examples such as this, which combines multiple Disney princesses with their various connotations, so Belle, Smart, Ariel, the outsider, to contemplate and critique society. Here we have a series of mid-shots, bringing us into their conversation and framing the characters. If we're familiar with the Disney films they come from, we might have a sense of their characters, but we might also use the heading as anchorage and its reference to Mean Girls, as well as the background setting of a school cafeteria, to consider this group in relation to the film Mean Girls and as a comment on popularity and the ways people are excluded through difference. We can use similar techniques to analyse images on Instagram. While there are thousands of examples on Instagram, I thought it might be useful to start with this image from Kim Kardashian West's account, an advertisement for her new range of underwear. We can start from the setting. Settings can be used to focus our attention on something in the frame or outside of it. While in the last example it provided context, high school, here the background is rather plain, suggestive of a dance studio with a bar behind Kim, and it thus focuses our gaze on the models. High-key lighting is used to show the faces of everyone, with women of a range of ethnicities in the photograph, although Kim is the central focus, with the other models posed around her. The dance setting is interesting for a number of reasons, including that while this is an ad for underwear, their dance poses and the setting suggests classiness, with associations with ballet in what otherwise might simply be considered sexualizing. The caption indicates that this image is an ad and fits with Kim's brand more generally. While the high-key lighting lets us see the faces of these women, we are unlikely to know them in the same way we are encouraged to know Kim. And we might think about the ways such examples use diversity to sell a product, a concept which has a range of complexities that you might like to think about further. So while we're on the topic of Instagram, it can be useful to think about how filters work in this space. They can be used for all kinds of purposes, including aesthetics, to make images look similar and to ensure consistency. This can be important for branding, but they can also be used to change or disguise something about oneself. You might like to think about what other meanings might be produced here. Finally, let's think about a GIF, those short little repeating moments taken out of pop culture that we laugh at or use to convey an emotion. A GIF has a suggestion of movement. More than a photograph, it can convey the feeling of a moment. So let's return to one of our examples from last week, Captain Marvel, resplendent in her new look. In this example, Captain Marvel is our protagonist. We're intended to see her as desirable, the focal point of the film, and we can see how some traditional elements are used to convey this. Firstly, she's lit from behind, producing a glow around her hair that we might associate with portrayals of whiteness and desirability used in film throughout the 20th century. Captain Marvel stands on the porch, which is in semi-darkness, but the setting here is also significant. There's a glowing home, a setting that often conveys safety, behind her, at the same time as she stands outside of it. We almost look up at her, suggesting her power in this moment. But I'm also left wondering about some aspects. For example, Monica, played by Akira Akbar, the daughter of Captain Marvel's best friend, is left in shadow in this low-key lighting. Given the tradition of black characters as sidekicks or best friends, her placement in the shadow seems problematic. This moment is significant or memorable enough for someone to turn it into a GIF, which people have watched many times. What is it about this scene that has led to it being chosen? What does the positioning of Monica in the shadow mean? While a film like Captain Marvel does some things differently, these African American women continue to be sidelined, assisting the white woman. To what extent do traditional conventions continue to be drawn upon? In the next video, we'll contemplate stereotypes a little further.